All right, document E. Content, what do we know? Show, we're not there yet. Charles Denby, okay.
November 1898.
Very good.
It's a forum.
Okay, it's a forum
It's a
meaning
forum.
what?
Credible.
Do we know what a forum is?
No.
Yeah, forums is a public location where one can go forth and share their thoughts. So this is open. You could say it does have a component of bias. However, it's not directed necessarily. So it is a decent source to be considered. Okay, what else do we know from this? Other than context yet? Anything else we could have? Yeah. Okay. Is he for or against?
For.
Now, how do we know this?
Because
He's saying that trade is important with the Far East.
Okay, where are we specifically finding that?
it
The
says
very
right here,
first
it
sentence.
gives us
Yep.
also valuable trade in both exports and imports.
Okay, very good. Now, with this, if you look at your essay, it involves the Spanish-American War. This is a document that you specifically want to use for that. Okay? So if you've written down the essay prompt somewhere, you might want to put document E above wherever you have Spanish-American War. Because that's where the Philippines are going to be a big issue with that. What else do we know here? As far as we understand that trade's important.
He's saying we are stretching out our hands for what nature meant should be ours, saying we're taking what should be ours.
Very good. And then the final thought, we are taking our proper rank among the nations of the world. We are number one. Okay, so you could say there's a component of arrogance present within this document. But nonetheless, if you believe you're number one and you hold true to that belief, then you should act that way. All right, so we are America, number one. And must act that way. Okay, very good. And this would certainly, this last portion here in the sentence that Mr. Baker provided for us, that would be something you may want to consider quoting when handling this document within the given essay. Document F, content.
It's an editorial, which means that's from a newspaper.
Okay, it's an editorial, appears within a newspaper or magazine. All right, again, somewhat of an open forum, like a letter to the editor, but nonetheless, it's a public individual. So Henry Watterson was provided over here, very good.
It's from the...
Okay, we have a specific Courier Journal that was provided with them. Now, that being said, any other components of content that we should be looking for here? I'll provide one.
It says that there is no right to intervene.
Okay, Cuba. That's important, again, to the Spanish-American War. So both of these documents are going to be utilized when handling that prompt, that portion of the prompt of the Spanish-American War. Now, Mr. Pizzo, please say again what you said.
It says right there that we have no right to intervene with Spain's.
Where are we at?
Right above Cuba.
Okay.
Right there.
Okay. Diction.
He's mad.
He's mad. Okay, this is intensity. You could say this is an emo doc, lots of emotion here. Okay, lots of emotion. Word choice is huge. Okay, obviously if you're going to get in an argument with someone, you want to remain cool, calm, and collected, and have a good word choice, because once you start swearing and attacking the other person, then the crowd is able to see that, well, all right, they've lost their cool and they're kind of a yahoo, if you will. Or a worse term if you want to go that route. Anyways, for or against?
I would say that he's for, because he says about the middle of the first paragraph, they're deserving of no more serious consideration than the featherhead maniacs who are bellowing for war for only war's sake.
Okay.
So he's just trying to describe the people up there that are trying to say that trade isn't necessary, that we shouldn't interfere.
Okay, so he's saying basically, we don't want to be involved just for the sake of conflict to flex our muscles. Okay, we don't want that necessarily. Alright, it's similar with the sailing of the Great White Fleet globally. We don't just want to, arrive in ports and be like, yes, look how great we are. Okay, we don't necessarily want that. What else could we say here that he's against?
He's against Spain.
So what is the purpose of this paragraph? What do you guys think? Because he's mentioning the war for a revolution, the American Revolution, the use of military violence, okay? We find it in the blood of the patriots who won our independence in the cannon's mouth, okay? So, what do you guys think here? What is the purpose of this portion of the document? Are we sure he's against?
I put neither.
Okay.
Is he saying he wants to avoid war? Almost.
Well, he doesn't want to become involved to go forth with war for war's sake, is what he's basically saying. So this document, you could also argue, again, with the William Jennings Bryan document, that we're not sure, okay? We have a split in society as far as thought on involvement. Okay, because here we have examples that we don't want to become involved just to go to war, okay, to interfere with Spain, even though Spain is misappropriately acting on the global spectrum. But down here he's bringing forth the American Revolution again, saying, well, you know, be cognizant of where we're from. We don't necessarily need to go forward with what we're thinking. Okay? Here we go. Causes of the Spanish-American War. Now, this would be information that you would want to have, certainly if you're attempting this DBQ that we've been working with, the documents. Nonetheless, we have a few different causes. Okay, Spain's treatment of the Cubans, almost as slaves. I'm going to change our ink here.
You got war again.
Yeah. War, almost as slaves. Like, they're just expendable, okay? They're being used for what is the most harsh directive of a colony, the expense for whatever the mother country needs. Okay? We supported the Cuban independence movement. Alright? Cuba's strategic location, enticing. Why? Because it's the largest isle in the Caribbean. Central location to Central and South America. Okay? Which obviously, you know, given our involvement in Panama, we're going to want a relatively central location as far as trading, navigational routes, etc., etc. Financial interests in the United States being hurt by the ongoing war. Okay? We're trying to trade with both sides here. If they're at conflict with one another, we're not going to benefit. No money. Okay? Influence of the Yellow Press by William Randolph Hearst. Hopefully he sounds familiar. Okay? Sensationalizing means what?
Like over-exaggerated.
Very good. Much worse than it actually is. Oh boy. Okay. Spanish atrocities in Cuba that would stimulate newspaper readership. Again, he's going for this. Okay? Readership, obviously, in any kind of editorial forum, magazine, newspaper, book. You want to make it as engaging as possible to get people to buy your book, to buy your press. Alright? Moving forward. Relations with Spain and the United States quickly deteriorated as a result of two events. The Delome letter, number one. Okay? Here we have a diplomatic dropping of the ball on their part. Okay? Spanish minister, private correspondent stole from the Spanish minister in Washington, so he's in our territory. Dupe de Delome. Derogatory comments towards McKinley, which made public outrage of the people. Okay? Attacking the U.S. President and people. Alright, saying our involvement globally is wrong. We need to stay out of the business of Cuba and Spain. Sinking of the Maine, USS Maine sent to Havana Harbor, destroyed, killing over 250 sailors. Alright? Which, you know, a lot of people have contended that this was almost like an inside job, which you've heard conspiracy theories about 9/11. People have heard, some historians do contend that this, the sinking of the Maine, number two, was an inside job to do what? To go to war. Absolutely. Okay, once this occurs, tragic no matter what perspective, inside or deliberate attack by Spain, it gives people that motion and dishing with the yellow press to say, whoa, these guys aren't going to back down, we need to take care of business. Over 250 American soldiers and sailors have died. Okay, let's go to war. Following that, demanded a ceasefire of Spain. They also agreed to, but in the minds of the people of Congress, lines have already been crossed. Okay, under pressure, Congress requests the president for a declaration of war. Now that typically doesn't occur that route. Any major war that you've ever been familiar with, especially with the example, if you've ever watched the movie Pearl Harbor, FDR approaches Congress with his speech, A Day That Will Live in Infamy, requesting funds and permission to go to war. All right? It's usually never this route. Declaration accepted, Teller Amendment assuring the Cuban people their autonomy, which means what?
They can rule themselves.
They will rule themselves once Spain is defeated. Okay? Again, this is kind of similar in comparison, not to the military scale that we had with Hawaii, because this is obviously much larger, but this is similar to the handling of Hawaii in that we're just trying to remove their government. Okay? Initially, Hawaii, 1894, declared sovereign nation. We don't want to establish our government there. We're just trying to get rid of the government that doesn't want us involved. Does that make sense? Okay, we're interested in Cuba, not necessarily formal control, but we just got to get Spain out of the picture. Moving forward. Some specifics with the Spanish-American War. American lives, many of them were ultimately taken because of disease and spoiled food, rather than actual conflict. Okay? Which, if you're familiar with the tropics, okay, you have to be pretty on with refrigeration, with food preservation, or you can end up with just small diseases wiping out entire troops and platoons of people.
Don't even drink the water.
And yeah, the water is, of questionable quality, i.e. the handling of the growth of the Panama Canal. Most of those people died from disease, not the actual danger of the labor that they're going forth with. 2 months after the war starts, Manila, the capital of the Philippines, captured. Okay, and again, we're at war with Spain here, so this is global. We're in the Philippines and in Cuba. All right. Attack on San Juan Hill made popular by the rousing charge of the Rough Riders, led by TR. Again, our American president. Okay. Destruction of the other Spanish fleet at Santiago Bay on July 3rd convinced the Spanish to open negotiations, once again to end fighting that month. Afterwards, the United States formally annexes Hawaii. Okay? We're going on a global colonization spree here. December 1898, Cuba receives its independence from Spain. Objective achieved. Primary goal of the Spanish-American War met. Okay? U.S. would have liked to have annexed Cuba, but could not, because then they would have gone to war with Cuban freedom. And we would also look like hypocrites with the previous document. All right? Spain relinquished control of Puerto Rico in the Caribbean and Guam in the Pacific. More territories that we're getting from the Spanish. So if you're keeping track, we now have the Philippines, Cuba. You could say we have Cuba, because Spain's no longer involved. Puerto Rico and Guam. Return for $20 million. The United States acquires the Philippines, excuse me. Filipino Emilio Aguinaldo led nationalist movement, ultimately put down after 3 years. What's our objective in the Philippines? What do you guys think? Naval bases. Why there?
Because it's closer to the Orient.
Closer to the Orient, specifically China, Japan. Very good.
We still have naval bases in the Philippines?
Yep.
Like,
Not major ones. Most of our major military bases are actually in Japan now. Couple minutes here. To briefly summarize the Spanish-American War, the ultimate objective of winning this war is global colonies. Cuba was our icon. Conspiracy on whether or not the Maine was actually sunk by the Spanish. Who knows? Okay? Maybe that's in the President Book of Secrets. Good luck finding that. And any questions? Good. Platt Amendment, okay, allows us to intervene in Cuban affairs. That's the big idea behind this. Denied Cuban self-determination, okay, we're taking back that component autonomy because this is granting us the ability to step in if we need to. Now, that doesn't formally say that we are in charge of the island. We are just basically their government shadow. Okay? We will become involved if we have to. Establishment of Guantanamo Bay, obviously that is a contested more along the lines of a prison base, but nonetheless military base. Okay, formally recognized Cuba, the U.S. as a protectorate, meaning they had, describe the difference between a protectorate and a colony. Anyone? It's the difference between direct and indirect imperialism.
With direct, the military is directly involved with the people that the people have to report to them. With an indirect, the people report to a leader that they appoint, and then that leader reports to.
Very good, very good. So the U.S. in a sense is in charge, but Cuba has its own government.
But they answer to us.
But it answers to the U.S. Very good.
Oh, you said that yesterday.
Okay. Puerto Rico, unusual relationship with the U.S. Why? Neither a territory nor an independent nation. Foraker Act, Congress provides Puerto Ricans with substantial political autonomy, meaning they have relative freedom to do what they wish, although we continued heavy influence on their politic and economic sectors. Remember, U.S., number one, our affairs are first, specifically our capitalist goals. Okay? Which is the main idea behind the Platt Amendment. If your decisions are affecting U.S. industry, your decisions are wrong. Okay? Because of his success in handling this war, McKinley will totally take out William Jennings Bryan. Although he'll still remain an icon of U.S. on the domestic sector. So write down domestic hero. Specifically with the farmers and the people.
Yeah, these definitely again.
Talk about the thunder recording or no? Cool. Moving forward. Latin America and the rest of the Caribbean. Okay, we know the Monroe Doctrine was number one. Essentially, what did that do in a nutshell? Just very basic description of the Monroe Doctrine.
Made us a superpower.
Made us a superpower by doing what, though?
Saying don't come over here, or
Stay out of our side of the house.
Right. That authoritative defense mechanism. Okay? Don't come over here. This is our half of the world. Look elsewhere. Okay? Roosevelt corollary, in addition to that, with reasonable efficiency and decency in social political matters, allows the United States to intervene. Okay? This makes us a police unit, essentially, in our hemisphere. Most major, well, any major decision in our half of the world has to go through the United States. Very good. Okay? We're familiar with big stick diplomacy and TR, right? I know Mrs. Gall does an excellent job with Teddy Roosevelt. I believe so anyways. As far as big stick policy, speak softly, carry a big stick, you'll go far. Okay, if you're involved and you look threatening, you act threatening, and if you have to, you intervene with all of your glory. America's number one. Okay, Panama Canal, the famous political cartoon that has TR standing in the middle of the Caribbean with a giant stick. Okay, looking almost as if he's a giant, which the United States in this portion of the world still today, arguably number one no matter what. Yeah, I believe in the MME boot camp, you guys are going to start seeing that too. Interventions in Latin America specifically. Now, if you have any one of these countries, I know the gentlemen of Oxford have China, so that's not going to help them. These are items that you might want to include, okay, as far as the project itself. Cuba, occupied 1898-1902, intervened in the following years, and eventually released to Castro. Okay? You also have the JFK embargo here. Okay. Dominican Republic, occupied 1916-24, protectorate to 1940, occupied once again.
Why didn't we just go take over Cuba in like a day?
When? Now? Like the
No,
time
like
period we're
this-
looking
this
at, or the
time-
1960s?
Time period we're looking at.
Time period we're looking at, again, we don't want to appear as overly abusive. We still want to look favorable on global politics.
Yeah, but
Threatening, but favorable.
if we would have did that, we would never had a problem with them.
And the Soviet Union, I do agree. I do agree. But again, you still don't want to appear as, you want the bully image without the bully stigma. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You want to look big. It's like linemen. You want to look huge and mean, but some of them just are not. Okay? But if you can appear as that, people won't mess with you. Megan?
What does it say? JFK what?
Embargo. Okay, IED, Protectorate, 1914-41, occupied further on. Occupied minimally, late 20th century. Ultimately, you need to know that of this section here, arguably the poorest nation. Due to civil uprising, due to
Haiti?
government instability.
Which still is.
Haiti?
Yeah.
And it pretty much still is now, after the
Yeah.
earthquake.
Yeah, natural disasters aren't helping them either. Nicaragua, 1909, further on to the 1980s. Reagan will be heavily involved in this. Okay, Mexico, 1916, during the Mexican Civil War, ultimately is where we step in, and that formally ends. Now, why 1916? Why in World War I? Why are we going to intervene with them? What's going to occur, or attempt to occur? Very good. Zimmerman, no.
Oh, yeah.
Imagine how that war could have been different.
That could be pretty bad.
Yeah, that would have certainly elongated the war, because you would have never sold Congress on fighting overseas if the war has a front in your own country.
Yeah.
Okay, which that could have been devastational for the French and the English.
Should have been Normandy, but in the galleys.
Any questions? Moving forward. Woodrow Wilson, heavily involved with the construction of Panama, or the Panama Canal rather, and other items. Okay, Jones Act provided eventual Filipino independence, made the Philippines full-fledged U.S. territory, granted universal male suffrage. Holy smokes! Look at how good we look here. Seriously though, okay, we have granted to them, we have bestowed upon them almost everything that we have fought for as a society. Okay, something to consider. Jones Act 1917 conferred citizenship rights for all Puerto Ricans, made democratic improvements to their legislative system. Right? Limited involvement in U.S. government here. Woo-wee! We are looking good as a society now. Okay, not only are we involved, but we're granting fundamental freedoms. And there will be some components we're going to drop the ball, unfortunately. Okay? Just over 50 years from the Civil War to the eve of World War I, which is that time period we looked at in this chapter. U.S. taking its place. Economic Leviathan. What does that mean? That's a good word. That's a good word.
Where is it?
Economic Leviathan.
Oh.
I don't know.
What do you guys think?
Leader?
Leader, yeah. Number one. Okay, monstrous, enormous component of the global spectrum. Okay, number one, America, however you want to write that. Okay, most important being in our portion of the world, our hemisphere of the world. Now, coincidentally, at first phase U.S. territorial expansion, period of manifest destiny. Okay, that is westward expansion. Make sure you have that. What did that ultimately start with? Westward expansion under Jefferson?
Oh, the Union flag?
Nope, not yet. We purchased some land. What was that called?
Oh, the
Louisiana Purchase. Very good. That was the first stage of U.S. imperialism. Now, what Mr. Pizzo has provided as far as the Indian Removal Act, under Jacksonian democracy, that would have been the second stage. Purchasing of Alaska, Seward's Folly, Hawaii, then global. Okay? Any questions? This is where we will be going next in the next chapter with populism and progressives.
Cool. Do we have a test soon?
Next week.
and the next week.